Hello and welcome. My name is Reggie, and today we are starting the first episode of my new series I'm calling First Impressions, where I'm going to give you my immediate thoughts on a game that I've played less than 5 times, why you might like it, why you might not like it. I'll talk about a few games that it reminds me of, and I'm going to give it a welcoming rating on my patented 4G scale that goes from grandma to gateway plus to gamer level. So we'll start with that for the game Finspan. All right, so I'm giving Finspan a gateway plus rating. Now, other people have played it and said it's super simple. I agree. Stonemaier Games on their own website is calling this a less complex Wingspan. It's very much meant to be that. However, and I do want to pull the expert card here, I'd like to think I have a lot of experience with this. This game is still a lot for a non-gamer. I do tend to show board games to non-gamers very frequently. I would think more than the average person, and I think that the mechanics in this game, if you have not played a board game since the Monopolies and the Clues, this might be a lot to take in. Now, if you've played Wingspan or Wormspan at all, then this is going to be dead simple to you. And so I think when people play this, they're thinking, oh, this is going to be super easy to everyone, but there is a little bit of a learning curve, and especially with the strategy of when to play cards and when to do things, I do not think will come naturally to non-gamers, that's what I'm going to give it. I'm going to call it a Gateway Plus. If you've played a couple modern games, especially if you've played Wingspan, this will be a very nice game for you. Okay, so how does it play? Similar to its predecessors, you are going to be playing fish cards or animals, whatever it is, magical animals, birds, into your tableau. You have your own player board. This time it's vertical. The cards themselves are horizontal, so they're a little bit bigger, which is great. And you're going to be playing them out and potentially building an engine to trigger the abilities that those fish have throughout the game and get a bunch more resources as you do it. Playing down fish is your main action that you're going to do in this game, and it is interesting because there's no food, absolutely no food like in the predecessor games. In this game, there are 4 different costs for a fish, and those could be other cards from your hand, could be eggs. You can pay eggs from anywhere in your ocean. There's going to be young that are little fish tokens that you can hatch, and you can pay for those. And some fish will need to consume other fish that are smaller than them by being played on top of them, including 3 forage fish that are present on your board when the game starts. So playing down fish, 4 different costs, but definitely different from its previous games. Yet the big thing is you do not have to play specifically in an order. In the previous games, you'd have to play from left to right. In this game, you can play fish anywhere that they belong. The fish have 3 different columns that are called dive sites, and there are 3 different zones. There's the sunlit zone up top, more shallow. Then there is the twilight zone in the middle and the deep depths of the midnight zone where you see the anglerfish and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of similar mechanics with the habitats and the caves from the previous games, but there's a little more freedom in where you can play the fish. The other option on your turn is to dive. And just like in Wormspan, you have a little meeple. This is a diver meeple, and you will go from the top of the ocean in a column and go all the way down, triggering any actions on your board if you have a fish in that zone. Or you will also, and you will also trigger any brown powers. This is very similar to the previous games. So you'll be going through and triggering any brown powers. And when you get to the bottom of that dive site, the first time you go down there, you get another bonus action. And this is to incentivize people to go visit all 3 columns and not just spam one section with a big engine. Looking at you egg-laying engines in base Wingspan. So what are the actions that are printed on the board and printed on cards? Typically, it is drawing cards from the deck, drawing cards from your personal discard, which is a big change and a really fun puzzle to be thinking about spending cards, and then they go to your own discard, not a public discard, and then you can draw them back from there. It's got this cool little symbol with like a bony fish in there as well. Lay eggs, and you are only allowed to put 1 egg on any fish. Hatch eggs into young, and then there's also moving young. And I will take a page right out of Jamie Stagmeier's YouTube channel just for this video to say that this is my favorite mechanism. My favorite mechanism of Finspan is moving these young tokens. So similar to any of the other things like eggs in the previous games, young are worth 1 point at the end of the game, but you're also allowed to move them with various actions throughout the game. And if you get 3 young on one space, they immediately upgrade into a school, which is worth 6 points instead of just 3 points. So it's a really fun puzzle to spatially move around, and it's completely fresh mechanic for this Spaniverse series. So why might you like this game? First and foremost, if you like fish, if you like the ocean, this is going to be an awesome game for you. If you have that person in your life who goes fishing or is a marine biologist or just, boats all the time, this might be that. I was a big bird fan before I played Wingspan, bird watcher. So this brought in bird watchers to the board game hobby, and I think Finspan could potentially be that for the marine biologists of the world. Second thing is, it is just straight up a simpler game. There is less going on, there's less powers in this base game than in Wingspan with everything, and especially more than Wormspan. And I'll add that even though it's simpler, there is less luck. There is, again, no dice, no needing to have food or resources of any kind besides your hand and the things that you already have on your board. You might also like this game if you like open information. So for a teach, I do think that is a nice thing to have, that everyone's hand is completely face up on the board. You're not holding the horizontal cards, so you can always talk about, what is on the board. And another piece that's pretty beneficial for friendlier gamers is that there's a lot of positive player interaction. There are several abilities in the game that allow everyone to do something, which again has showed up in Wingspan and in Wormspan, but it's very, very at the forefront of how Finspan operates. Why might you dislike this game? First and foremost, if you don't care about fish. I'm not really a big fish fan. I don't watch Shark Week or anything. I will say it's very interesting to see these very unique fish on the board and read the fun facts about them, even more so for someone like me than like dragons that are completely fictional. Another thing, and I think the piece that is missing the most for me, is the lack of a card market. Every time you draw cards, it is directly from the top of the deck. There's no 3 cards out there for you to choose from, and I'm realizing that that is something I absolutely love in games like Wingspan and others, that I love a drafting market, and that is completely gone in this game. You just draw from the top of the deck and they go into your face-up hand. Also, which I would not have expected, but this game is a table hog. Those vertical boards take up a ton of space. If you are like a coffee table player, I would seriously see this board in real life somehow before you buy these. I have a 60-inch round table. We call the dining room Camelot. We play big games, and we played 4-player, and it barely fit on this huge 60-inch radius table. So just keep that in mind. It takes up a lot of space, more than you would think for a game of its weight. Also, it's a little on the simple side, so if you don't like entry-level games, Gateway Plus games, then if you thought Wingspan was too light, then 100% Finspan will feel too light for you. One thing it's missing for me personally is those private objectives. I love the bonus cards in Wingspan, and there's none of that at the beginning. There's no decisions to be made at the beginning of the game. You just get 5 fish, and you get some eggs on your board, I think, and a young, and you just get to go. So it's a very quick entry-level start, but there's no decisions to be made before the game starts. And finally, which might be unfair to criticize the game, but one thing you want to be careful of is this game feels like it needs an expansion already. The cards, it's 1 stack of cards, and again, you're just taking from the top of the deck, and there's no round end powers, no pink powers where there's things happening in between. Very, very straightforward things. It definitely is ripe for an expansion, and they have even advertised you can go do a survey right now and vote for what you might want. It's like between reptiles or invertebrates or marine mammals. Instead of doing location, they're gonna do different types of sea creatures, which I think is really clever, but it already feels like it needs some more fresh mechanics in specifically the fish powers. So those are the things to keep an eye out for of whether you'd like it or dislike it. And finally, I'm just gonna talk about 2 games here that it really reminded me of in my few plays here, just from first glance. Number 1 is Forest Shuffle. So if you've played Forest Shuffle, it's a very card-driven game, and to play down animals or trees, you have to discard cards to a clearing in the middle, and then you might want to grab those discards back. Now, that game is public, and you're competing with other people on when to throw things out and grab them, but it is a similar hand management style, and it's nature themed. So if you really like Forest Shuffle, and you love how complex it is, then you probably should just stick with it. If you like Force Shuffle, but you want to see how else people could do that in maybe a lighter way in a new setting with also meeples and some engine building, then you might want to try out Finspan in that case. The other comparison Jamie Stonemaier made on his video, but I really see this one, and that is Tiny Towns. I think it's a unique comparison, but in Tiny Towns, there are some resources that you get on your board in a certain configuration, and they will upgrade into a building. And that is very similar to getting those young together and upgrading them into school. So if you like that mechanic in Tiny Towns, you might also really enjoy that here in Finspan. So Force Shuffle and Tiny Towns are the two games that it reminds me of. All right, if you like this, if this gave you something, please leave a like, hit subscribe. I'll be doing a lot more of these in the future. If you didn't enjoy this or you have some suggestions and feedback, please leave them in the comments. I really have a fat stack of games I want to do these quicker first impressions videos for. Give me some advice on what you might like to see in the future. And also, if you have played this game, tell me what you think. Do you agree with this? What are you thinking of it? How many plays have you gotten in? Have you played it solo? I'd love to hear all that in the comments for all the new people coming here and trying to learn about this game. So if you made it this far, I really appreciate you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.